I absolutely love the planets. The interesting facts covering each of them is seemingly endless. My obsession started when I was younger than you. The time has come to explore the 8 planets of the solar system. But before we get to the planets, let's start with the sun, the glue that holds the solar system together. Let's face it, without the sun, we wouldn't be here, and neither would the Earth. Or for that matter, the entire solar system. So that's just how important the sun is. The sun formed from a dense cloud of dust pulled together by gravity. Now wait a second. Dust has gravity? Yes, everything has gravity. You could release 2 marbles in zero gravity and they would slowly attract. Now when the sun was formed, there are still clouds of extra dust orbiting around. Like the sun, the dust slowly built up and formed the planets we know. Now the sun may look small up in the sky, but really it's ginormous. Over 1 million Earths could fit in it. That's 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. Aren't you glad that's not on a test? The diameter, or distance from one end of the sun to the other, is 864,000 miles. Driving at freeway speed, it would take you 600 days, or about 2 years to drive this distance. Space is big, huh? The sun is made out of gas, unlike Earth, which is made out of rock. Therefore, you could actually stick your hand in it. But I wouldn't recommend it unless you want to be completely obliterated by the heat, because on top of being very big, the sun is very, very extremely hot. The surface temperature is a sweltering 10,000 degrees, and if you think that's hot, try the core, which is 27 million degrees. So now, let's visit the planets where the temperature is a bit more reasonable. We have reached our first stop, Mercury. We are officially a distant 36 million miles from the sun. We are so far away, the temperature has cooled down to 330 degrees. A lot better, but still very hot. Literally as hot as an oven. It is barren and dotted with craters caused by colliding asteroids. Its diameter is 3,000 miles, which may sound big, but is small compared to Earth's diameter of 8,000 miles. Since it's smaller than Earth, it has less gravity. A 50-pound kid on Earth would weigh just 19 pounds on Mercury. Our next stop is Venus. Even though Venus is 67 million miles from the sun, twice as far as Mercury, it is still the hottest planet in the solar system, with a surface temperature of 870 degrees. Now how could that be if it's farther away from the sun than Mercury? Venus is covered in a thick layer of clouds that trap the sun's heat. This is called the greenhouse effect, and is the leading cause of global warming on Earth. Venus is almost the same size as Earth, with a diameter of 7,500 miles, so that 50-pound kid would weigh 45 pounds. Next up is the one and only Earth, our home. We live a mind-boggling 93 million miles from the sun, a very long road trip. Earth is the only planet in the solar system that is known to have organic life. This is because we live in the Goldilocks belt. Any closer to the sun is too hot, and any farther away is too cold. But here it's just right. Traveling further away from the sun is Mars, the outermost inner planet. It is 141 million miles from the sun. It has a diameter of 4,200 miles, so about half of Earth's diameter. The 50-pound kid would weigh 18 pounds here. It is said that Mars was once like Earth and had oceans and an atmosphere, but due to low gravity, most of the atmosphere escaped into space, allowing the water to evaporate. There are still signs of the water, like a river-carved canyon, 10 times the size of the Grand Canyon. Studies have shown there may be some organic activity there. We are now crossing over the asteroid belt to the outer planets. Like the sun, these planets are almost entirely made out of gas. They are much bigger than the rocky inner planets as well. The biggest and innermost of them all is Jupiter. Jupiter orbits at 483 million miles from the sun. Its diameter is 87,000 miles, so 1,300 Earths could fit in it. In fact, all of the other planets combined could fit in it. The 50-pound kid would weigh 118 pounds. On top of being the largest of all the planets, it has the largest storms as well. Its red spot is basically a giant hurricane that can engulf 3 Earths. We are now so far from the sun, the temperature has dropped to a nippy negative 234 degrees Fahrenheit. Our next planet is one of my favorites, Saturn. We are now 890 million miles from the sun. The surface of the planet may look boring, a giant solid pale yellow-brown colored sphere. What makes it special are its majestic rings. Now what forms these rings? Well, let's zoom in and take a closer look. What appears to be a bunch of rings is actually billions of pieces of ice and rock orbiting the planet. Maybe someday they will turn into moons. Like Jupiter, Saturn is very large, with a diameter of 72,000 miles. Even so, you'd weigh about the same at the surface of Saturn as you do on Earth. This is because Earth is much more dense than Saturn. Actually, Saturn is so light and spongy, it could float on water. After Saturn, crossing the billion-mile mark, is Uranus, at 1.8 billion miles from the Sun. Uranus is quite a bit smaller than Jupiter and Saturn, but it's still quite a bit larger than Earth, the diameter being nearly 4 times larger. Now, what makes Uranus special is its axis. It basically lies sideways, as you can tell by its faint rings. Uranus is also the coldest planet in the solar system, with a teeth-chattering surface temperature of negative 360 degrees, which is about the freezing temperature of oxygen and beyond the freezing temperature of nitrogen. Yes, if Earth were that temperature, our atmosphere would be entirely ice. Finally, we have arrived at our last stop, the last of the 8 planets, Neptune. We are now 2.8 billion miles from the Sun. We are more than 30 times farther away from the Sun than Earth. Neptune is about the same size as Uranus, with a diameter of 30,000 miles. Neptune is the windiest planet in the solar system, with winds reaching 1,500 miles per hour. To put that in perspective, the highest wind speed ever recorded on Earth was only 230 miles per hour. Well, that wraps up our journey exploring the planets. I hope you enjoyed exploring and learning about them.